exciting day here at E-MTB Review because I'm going to give you my review of the powerful Sram Maven Brake. This is their most powerful, ideal for downhill or e-bike applications. And I'm going to give you pros, cons, and my impressions. I've been riding it all week. This was not given to me by SRAM, so I'm not going to give you a lot of the marketing and the positivity of the product, but really get in touch with the real application for our riding, especially e-biking. So why is this significant? SRAM is by far the biggest OEM supplier out there for bikes and e-bikes. And they've improved their drivetrain. I complained a lot about it. It's awesome now. They've improved their suspension as well. It is now so good. But the gating item, the real kind of critical point is the brakes. The brakes are not that good. They're about 6-7 years old. And even then, it wasn't a new redesign. And they're just not that powerful. Good modulation, but the power just isn't there for the modern day applications. So the big news is they said 50% more power. 50%, not 15, 50. I've never heard a number like that. And they said 32% less lever force than the codes. So this replaces the codes. So much more power and kind of less effort than the codes. It's like, whoa, okay, you gotta check into that. So how they did it is they made the pistons bigger. So I think the old one was 17 millimeter. These are 4 piston, by the way. Now they have 19.5 and 18. And it's bigger than anything that exists out there. I do have a roundup of all 4 piston brakes, the good ones out here. Really good video. And the code was kind of in last place. And this, I think, threatens to jump into first or second place. So it is noteworthy indeed. And in the piston size, you're not only talking the difference between 19 and 18, it's pi r squared, meaning pi times radius, and you square that, and that is the total area of the piston. So that's the real increase in power or in contact point. So significant. The other thing they did, once you increase your piston size, obviously you got to do your volume, but the caliper is a weak point. When you have so much power pressing on it, they're talking like 500 newtons pressing on something, it just pushes the casing holding the piston, that's called the caliper, outward like this. And that is a waste of energy. It's a waste of your effort. It's a waste of all the hydraulic engineering. And what they did is they stiffened it up. And the way they stiffened it up is with an industrial approach, kind of like a sledgehammer into the problem. They just put a big monster plate here. And so you can't access the pads now from the rear. And they put these 4 big bolts with huge heads. That's not for appearance. That's for contact point. So this is putting that thing together. Really incredible, kind of work that they did. Not the prettiest, but man, really good. And then the other thing they did is they improved the rotors, HS2 rotors. They improved that about a few months ago, 7% more power than before. They also switched on a kind of a different tone. They switched to mineral oil. This is for a whole new set of issues. They've been DOT for forever, and now they're mineral oil, much like Shimano and I believe TRP. And the reason they did that is because of longevity, durability. Or DOT4 fluid is what you see in cars, but it's kind of destructive for brakes. They break down the seals. It attracts water. So no matter how sealed it is, it's going to get contaminated with water. So that is a big thing. They wanted longevity. You know, the Shimano brake, you're supposed to service it, but after 3-4 years, you squeeze the lever and it's still good, even though you haven't touched the brake. And so it's just a lot more easy to live with. The other thing they did was just from sintered pads, OEM, a box stock, into organic pads. That is a huge shift, because I think 80-90% of people are just going to get what came with the bike or what came with the brake. And now they're going with organic. They're saying, hey, for most of y'all, organic is good because it's quieter, it modulates better, it has a better initial bite. so organic. And then there's a few other improvements. The lever is very similar to what they had in the Ultimate Stealth, which was updated, I think, last year. But the cable has been improved, so it's not facing your handlebar anymore and not scratching it. Also, the clearances for your bolts. You know how SRAM is so frustrating because the codes, you're trying to move the caliper and you can't really get the wrench in there unless you have a ball socket. And now that you have Torx, you can't really have a ball Torx. So now you can access the bolts right there easily. So there you go. I've been riding it all week, like I said, and this is an e-bike, and you know, so I've been doing the steepest descents that I could, and I'm like, wow. When they say 50% power, I think it's true. And the effort is good. It's about the lever action is about the same as the latest Code Ultimate Stealths, so that doesn't really change. So it's not the easiest lever to activate, but once you're there, you know, it's kind of got a heavy spring, not like a Dominion A4. But once you're there, you're like, okay, the effort is so easy. And so I was doing a lot of steep trails, really, really good. And then one thing you'll notice with this system that I have is it's got a tiny rotor. Nobody rides these rotors on e-bikes. In fact, they're all 200, and what I do is most of my bikes are all on 220s. This is on a 180, so much power even on a 180. So what they're saying is every time you jump rotors from 180 to 200, you gain 14% braking power. So 200 to 220, another 14%, so 28%. But this is already 50% more powerful. So what's it saying is this with a 180 is about 22% more powerful than the Code. And I can attest to that. It's good. Initial bite is good. It is dead silent. Dead silent. Modulates good. You don't have that grinding metallic noise. So I love it. The other thing I will talk about now is the cons. What are the disadvantages of this system? The big one is the caliber is huge and kind of ugly. They kind of gussied it up with some nice machining, and they have some colorways and whatnot, but it's not the prettiest. They basically got a sledgehammer approach into this solution, into this problem. Instead of getting a forged, one piece forged and elegant sculpting, I said, no, forget that. So it's not the prettiest. It's heavier, about 50 grams. And then you can't change the pad from the outside, which is kind of common now. The Dominion A4, I noticed, is so good, but you can't change the pads from the outside. And that's because they wanted that outside. When you have a big gaping hole, you lose a lot of stiffness. The Magura MT7, you notice it had so many pads. It's not because more pads is better. It's because they're able to put that bridge on the backside. And you can still change the pads, but that bridge gives it that strength from expanding, you know, when you're applying the force. So that's one thing. Caliper is not the prettiest, and it is you have to change the pads from the inside. Okay, another con is, I would say, so mineral oil, they prescribe only Maxima mineral oil only, or your warranty is void. And I'm like, so that's a little bit of a downside, because who does that? You know, who specifies a certain brand? It's not their brand, mineral oil or no warranty. But I don't know if they're going to enforce it or not. But I kind of understand now as I research this subject. .4, .5 fluid is certified. You know, they all have to be tested to a certain standard. Mineral oil is a free-for-all. It could be whale oil or baby oil. You can call it mineral oil. Comes from minerals. So what they're doing, what SRAM is doing to control that, is they're saying, hey, we know Maxima. We've tested them. Use them, or no good. Otherwise, it's the consistency and the seal breakdown. I think SRAM said they really worked on the seals of this bad boy, so that a couple years down the line, maybe 5 years down the line, the seals will still be good. Everything depends on the seals when it comes to durability or losing pressure. Okay, another downside is the weight. Like I said, the weight of the caliper is 50 grams more than the old codes, which is not the lightest either. So just putting it out there. before we close, we'll get to the numbers. One thing I really love about this release and SRAM of late is they're publishing a lot of numbers. You know, the fact that they can say, hey, this is 50% more powerful than the codes. They're comparing it to themselves. They've also tested all the competition, but they can't publish that because, you know, it's kind of bad form to do that because it's your own study. It's not a third party. But they have a lot of numbers and graphs. So I'll show you some graphs, you know, how much force it has exactly compared to the codes and how much lever pressure it has. So 50% more power, 32% less effort. And what they say is they've done a lot of studies. Basically, they have a lot of test equipment. When you go from the old rotor to this rotor, this is 7% more power. The other thing is when you go from a 180 to 220, they say that's 14% more power. And then to 220, another 14%. So they're quantifying everything. And I think that is very cool. So what they're doing, what they're saying is, hey, this is so powerful. Start with the lesser rotor. And the real advantage that they're looking for is heat generation. You know, they said you don't want your brakes dead cool because they actually work better when they're up to temp. You know, like race cars. So far, 180, I've been so happy with it. I'm like, damn, so good. But I'll test the concept. I'll have a temp gun and you just jump higher. Another jump. Woo! And try 180, try 220 for me because most of my bikes have 220. But I think that's kind of another sledgehammer approach where I'm just putting the biggest rotor and maybe not ideal for me, thinking, hey, what harm can it do? They're saying the harm is you can't heat the rotors up enough. They say if your rotors after many uses is brown or bronze, it's good. If it's like rainbow oil slick colored, it's too hot. You know, you're overheating it. So they're putting a lot of concepts, a lot of science behind it. I like the approach. I like everything that's going on here, the power, the modulation. What I wish for is a little bit lighter action on the lever. That would be cool. It's a little bit heavy, especially the breakaway force. But I do love how powerful it is, how easy to modulate, and how quiet on a 180 rotor. So I'm going to do more testing and I'm going to compare it to all the other brakes in my arsenal. But I think it's a great day. It's a great day for the bike industry, for the e-bike industry, because this SRAM, especially with transmission, is going to get spec'd so many times, and it's going to have whatever bike, e-bike, it's going to have SRAM brakes. And this is so much more appropriate for e-bikes than codes. And I think people are going to be safer. They're going to have so much more fun. So this is good. All right, thank you very much.